All right, welcome to this week's edition of the Podcast Express. This week we got Scott Sudikoff. He's an actual professional broadcaster. He does play-by-play for various sports over on the East Coast in the Boston area, and he's a big wrestling fan. I got a chance to sit down with him last night and have about a 40-minute interview, so I'll be bringing that to you today. Also, Joe and I are going to cover Great Balls of Fire and kind of the fallout with Raw and SmackDown after that, and kind of what we're looking for leading into SummerSlam this year. Also, we'll cover McGregor and Mayweather, their shenanigans from their two press conferences. Alberto is an asshole. Paige is also an asshole. We'll cover them in great detail. And then we're going to go over all the news and events from today's Wrestling Observer newsletter and whatever else the hell we want to talk about. How you doing, Joe?
I'm doing pretty good, man. I didn't even think of it, but I think we have a new weekly segment on our hands with Alberto as an asshole. Like, the guy just gives us material every single week because he's just such a piece of shit.
Yeah, man. That guy keeps himself in the headlines every single week. So, I'm looking forward to talking about that. But let's get started with Great Balls of Fire. So the Observer posted today that they had 46.9% thumbs up, 16.5% thumbs down, and 36.6% thumbs in the middle. What say you, Joe? Where are you at on this show?
Yeah, I was kind of right along of thumbs in the middle. Right after the show ended, I ran a poll on our Twitter account at the Pod Express, and pretty much the exact same reaction. It was about, I want to say about 30% thumbs up, about I think it was close to 20% thumbs down, and the rest was all thumbs in the middle. And I kind of agree. It was good, but it wasn't great. I got exactly what I expected from the Lesnar-Joe match. It was a match. It was a match that happened. I wasn't impressed with it, but I wasn't overly disappointed with it. It wasn't a squash match by any means, but I did absolutely love the angle we got from Braun Strowman and Roman Reigns. Like, that was probably the highlight of the summer for WWE. That was the high point of the summer for WWE, in my opinion. I loved that entire match and the angle.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can tell why now that they really wanted to go back to that ambulance match, because it seems like they had that idea for a long time anyway. So they're like, but then Braun got hurt, so they canceled the match, and then they did a four-way or something like that at the pay-per-view that Braun was supposed to have that ambulance match on, but he got hurt, and so I'm glad that they went back to it because that payoff was worth it. So looking at the poll results from the Observer, it looks like Brock Lesnar and Samoa Joe won for best match, which I was kind of shocked by. Next was Braun Strowman and Roman Reigns. After that, Cesaro and Sheamus versus the Hardys in the Iron Man match, and then Sasha Banks and Alexa Bliss, which I'm surprised that even made the list, or that anybody would even vote for that match, because it was kind of a garbage match with a count-out finish that nobody really cares about. So let's stick with the top three matches of that show. So, like you said, Brock Lesnar and Samoa Joe, they had a match. It went a little over 6 minutes from bell to bell, not counting the stuff in the beginning. I was kind of on the edge of my seat, and I think they did this by design. They actually waited until you thought the pay-per-view was already supposed to be over to stop the match. And then they got everybody thinking, oh, it's going to last 30 seconds. It's going to last 30 seconds. And then Joe comes out and smashes him during the intro, puts him through a table. And then I'm thinking, and Twitter it seemed like Twitter was thinking that, oh, this is going to be it. They're just going to call off the match, and then they'll get a rematch and blah. But nope, Brock Lesnar got up, and then it just seems like they just kind of traded suplexes and chokeholds for about 6 minutes. And then Lesnar got him for the F5 and got the pin, 1, 2, 3, clean in the middle. Now, I don't care that Joe didn't kick out of the F5. I'm okay with that. And as a matter of fact, they should start doing that more often. People shouldn't be kicking out of each other's finishing holes. I think that's stupid. So I'm glad that he actually didn't kick out. And I actually like the fact that I don't know if they brought this up on Raw. I only saw the Raw highlights. But I like the fact that Joe never got his hooks in, if you know what that means, whenever he got the choke. He was in a standing choke, but he never actually brought him all the way to the ground and got his legs wrapped around him to where Lesnar couldn't move. Because anytime he does that, people tap out. So hopefully they bring that part up. And maybe they do a rematch at SummerSlam. I don't know. I think they could do that, or they could save it for a future match. But where do you see Samoa Joe and Brock Lesnar going next?
Yeah, they have plenty of options. It almost feels like it's guaranteed that Roman, in some way, shape, or form, is going to take the title at SummerSlam. I almost feel like it's probably going to be a fatal four-way at SummerSlam for Roman, Braun, Joe, and Lesnar, because they was Roman, Joe, and Lesnar in the ring together on Monday Night Raw. Lesnar basically told Roman that he doesn't deserve shit. He said shit on TV because he's Brock Lesnar and he doesn't care. Joe got in Lesnar's face again, and they kind of played that angle up a little bit. They had Braun off of TV, obviously, selling the storyline injury where he was almost murdered. So I wouldn't be surprised if they either do a triple threat and have Braun come in and attack Roman. Maybe I would be great idea if they put the title on Samoa Joe for a little bit and maybe have Roman take it off of him later. But I see some sort of multi-man match at SummerSlam for the main event, because I'm getting the feeling that Brock Lesnar cannot do a long match on his own. I don't think he has the cardio for it anymore. If you look at him in that match, a 6-minute match, he was already beat red and purple and sweating. I think they're going to have to go with a multi-man match to make it a little bit longer. They want SummerSlam to be the second WrestleMania. It's kind of the second biggest event of the year. So I expect a multi-man match there in some way, shape, or form for Lesnar to lose the title.
Yeah, I really hope that they don't do a multi-man match. I'm not the biggest fan of those, especially for the world title, or the universal title, whatever the hell it's called now. But they can go with a lot of different directions with this, and I think that's good. That's going to keep it interesting, because they could do Joe and Brock again, and then Braun and Roman again, which I happen to enjoy. I think that would be great. Or they could do Roman versus Brock, and then Joe versus Braun. So the way that they could do that is to have Braun come out to cost Roman the match, except he accidentally cost Joe the match, and that way you still have it to where Roman's never really defeated Joe, so you can have Joe as an opponent for Roman down the line, and you can have Roman take the title off of Brock at SummerSlam, and then have Roman versus Joe, Roman versus Strowman kind of throughout the fall and winter, and then they could set up a big Brock Lesnar, Braun Strowman match for WrestleMania, and Roman Reigns versus John Cena. I think that's where they go.
Yeah, and that that in itself would be a good idea. I'm okay with the idea of a multi-man match at SummerSlam, because look back at Lesnar's probably his last really good match, and it was at Royal Rumble when it was him versus Cena versus Rollins, because he was able to play a part in that story, but he wasn't the main focus of the match. So you're able to protect his deficiencies as a wrestler, and it's purely cardio now. He just doesn't have the cardio to be a great wrestler anymore. A lot of people wanted to blame the short matches previously on Goldberg. I think it's every bit as much as Brock. So I think a multi-man match there will make sense for SummerSlam, and you can continue to play the storylines off of that moving into the future. I think SummerSlam's probably the last time we see Lesnar until at least Survivor Series, maybe even until Royal Rumble.
Yeah,
I really think he'll be gone that long.
Yeah, I think it'll be Royal Rumble, and then you'll see him pretty regularly from Rumble till Mania.
Yeah. It sounds like he may only miss about 2 or 3 Raws from Rumble until Mania. So I would say we probably won't see him again for a while, meaning he's got to drop the title at SummerSlam, because there's no way fans are going to accept the champion not being on TV regularly.
Right, and
for a four-way time.
Yeah, a 4-way could do it to where they keep Brock strong. But then you got the problem there, like who loses? That's going to be another issue. Now, I think in a kind of a smart mark world, you have Joe submitting Roman, but if Roman's going to be headlining WrestleMania, I don't think that they do that at SummerSlam. So, it's very interesting. They really could go a lot of different ways. I'm pretty excited to see it. Now, the Strowman versus Reigns ambulance match, I would say both of us agree that was the best match of the card. Dave Meltzer thought it was the best match of the card, even though he gave it 3 3/4. That's a pretty good rating. I would have given it a 4-star rating, because I loved that match. I thought it was great. The finish was kind of hokey, with, Roman trying to spear Braun, and then him doing kind of a Three Stooges Wile E. Coyote dive into the back of the ambulance, and then Strowman, slamming the door shut and this and that. But what upset me about the thing was, okay, Roman attempts murder on a guy, right?
Attempted murder.
Okay. And I loved the scene. I loved the overacting. I loved everything about it. It was cheesy. I dug it. The blood, everything about it was great. But he didn't go heel. The next night on Raw, Roman was the same exact guy that he always is.
How the hell, when you attempt to murder another human being, how are you not the bad guy?
Right. And how is Braun not the good guy now?
Well,
I mean, he came out heroically. He wouldn't offer, get any help from anybody. He was fucking John Wayne, right?
To be fair, Braun Strowman also did attempt murder as well on Roman Reigns. So it's kind of trading attempted murder. And when he tried to kill Roman, they chanted a "You deserve it" chant to Roman. So
yeah, that is
maybe
true.
That's their justification. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, but I was kind of disappointed that we didn't really see Roman any differently the next night on Raw. But I love the match. What did you think?
Yeah, I had a lot of fun with it. My favorite WWE moment in a while was when Roman swung the chair at Braun a couple times, and then Braun just yelled out, "Hit me again, you son of a bitch," and then just caught the chair and ripped it from him. Like, it just showed how big of a guy that Braun Strowman is, how powerful he is, and really got him put over. I was fine with the finish because both guys still coming out looking strong. Like, nobody really lost in that match, even though Roman will go down on paper as the loser. Both guys came out of that looking strong. They beat the shit out of each other, and I would have gave it probably 4 stars as well. I mean, I wouldn't get too crazy with it. It fell just under that, so it's hard to argue with 3 1/4 or 3 3/4. But yeah, I kind of agree with you. I was hoping Roman would come out heel the next night. Maybe we'll see a little bit more of that when Braun does come back. But how are you not the bad guy when you attempt to murder somebody on national television? I also love what they did immediately after, just throwing out Slater and that other jobber. I can't even think of his name. They just threw him out in a random match and didn't even really show it at all. Yeah, I thought that was a nice touch to kind of add into the realism of it, to make it feel like something was actually wrong.
Yeah, I thought everything they did was great, except for the follow-up the next night on Raw. Kurt was like, when Roman comes out, he goes, "What are you doing out here? You shouldn't get a title shot because you're a jerk for what you did to Braun last night, blah, blah, blah," all the crap he said. And I was like, that's it? That's his punishment? Yeah. He almost killed a member of the roster. And you're just going to wag your finger at the guy?
Yeah, no, like, saying, "Hey, you should probably get a lawyer."
Right.
Cops are looking for you. We have millions of witnesses. This was seen. Like,
and then he fled the scene.
Yeah.
He fled the scene. The asshole fled the scene. I don't know.
I also had a problem with the firefighters. Like, is the jaws of life, does it really take that long to get something open? And also, why are they not trying to go in through the back? Why were they going through a side door?
Well, if they went through the back, it was clear that the back was kind of open, so that ruins the shot. So they had to do it through the side door, so that way they could get the jaws of life. And yeah. I have been in training exercises with the fire department, watching them get the jaws of life, and yes, it does take that long. So okay. I can vouch for that. I've actually witnessed this personally. It does take quite a bit of time.
Yeah, and to check on Braun, in an ambulance, from the cab of the ambulance, they have a doorway to the back. Why was nobody getting in? Why were there no EMTs getting in the cab of the ambulance to at least look at Braun to make sure he was breathing?
Right.
Everyone's just kind of standing outside saying, "We're coming for you, Braun. Stay strong." No one thought to just crawl in the cab of the ambulance and say, "Hey, this guy's still breathing. We'll work on him while you're getting the door open."
Right. Well, we could stay here all night trying to make sense out of wrestling, but it's wrestling is pretty much nonsense, but that's kind of why we like it. Now, the only other match that was really of any consequence was the Iron Man match, Sheamus and Cesaro versus the Hardy Boys. Now, it wasn't a good match. Well, I take that back. It was a good match, but it wasn't an outstanding match, and it wasn't the match that Michael Cole was trying to tell us that it was. He continually said it was one of the great, not last man, but a great Iron Man matches of all time. It wasn't anything close to that. But I got excited the next night on Raw when the Hardy Boys came out, and it seemed like they were breaking. And Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson came out, kicked their ass, and then the Revival kicked their ass, and I thought that they were breaking. Turns out on Twitter the next day, that's not what's happening. But anyway, what did you think of the match, and then what do you think of the fallout?
Yeah, the match had a slow build up. I think it went 30 minutes long. It probably took about 20 minutes for me to get invested into it. But the last 10 minutes of the match, they really got into it. I was hoping they would play off the missed 3 count when the referee clearly hit 3, but then called it off. Because, the entire crowd saw it. He counted 3, and that cost him about a minute of the match. So I was hoping they'd play off something on that. And if you looking at the story of the Broken Hardys, because in my mind on Monday night, that was the most broken they have been since they've been on WWE television. Matt Hardy even said it himself. We're bruised, we're busted, we're even a little broken, and the crowd went nuts. In their mind, they had an agreement where they were going to use the gimmick, and Jeff Jarrett kind of went back on that and just kind of said no. So I think that they were ready to be broken. It feels like they want to do it by SummerSlam, but Jeff Jarrett and the other guys at Nordum, they just have to hold up their end of the deal. In the Hardys' mind, they had an agreement last week. They had sent the contract over. Rebby was going to shut her mouth up finally. And if she ever said anything about him again, was going to get fined $5,000. I think that's fair for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. To get her shut up, that's fair for everybody.
Is she helping, you think?
She's not hurting because
I disagree. I think she is hurting. I think that if because Impact, they don't need to give them this gimmick, right? They will be fine without giving the Hardy Boys the gimmick. People are going to forget about it in a year or so. They're going to not be so mad. They don't have to do this. Now, I'm not saying they shouldn't do it. I think that they should. But if she continues to kind of put them on blast, and if Matt Hardy continues to put them on blast, and like Shane Helms has been doing it, none of that is helping the situation. Wouldn't it be better for them to just kind of not talk about it?
Well, it's better for Global Force to not talk about it because of what you just said, because if no one's talking about it, in a year or so, people will just forget. But as long as Rebby's running her mouth and reminding fans of it and keeping fans pissed off, that helps their case. If she shuts her mouth, fans will just forget about it in a year because the Hardys will still go out and they'll put on good matches. They're still the Hardy Boys. And fans will eventually forget about the broken gimmick. So I do think it's important that she keeps putting them on blast and keeps fans pissed off. That way, if this is a gimmick they want to use, we can't let fans forget about it. It's plain and simple. Yeah. And from what I read, there's something with Dixie Carter coming up to where she had possibly breached the Hardys' contract on the broken gimmick while she was still in ownership of it. And the timing it's kind of adding up for when they thought they had an agreement. The same week that Dixie Carter is on WWE television, I'm not saying this for certain, but I almost wonder if there was something that she could have said to Vince or Triple H or even the Hardys or some lawyers of like, hey, here's what you guys can use. I feel like Dixie might want to get into WWE in some way, shape, or form.
Well, I mean, she was on WWE Network on Monday night, and there are a lot of rumors swirling around. Raw's in Nashville next week. They're doing this whole storyline with Kurt Angle, saying that someone's going to be there come next week. I love you, this and that. There's a lot of rumors swirling around that it could be Dixie Carter. I don't think it's going to be. I don't.
I hope it's not.
I think it's going to be Stephanie McMahon, and they're going to, kind of finally do the payoff of that love triangle they had, back in the Attitude Era between Kurt and Stephanie and Triple H. But, I think there might be something to it though, that Dixie might be kind of helping the Hardy Boys in this situation.
Yeah, and even if nothing else, if her helping out the Hardy Boys just gets her in good favor with WWE, to where maybe it's some job in Stamford, Connecticut, maybe it's something on television in the future. She definitely wants to be a part of the wrestling world, and she's no longer going to have that with Global Force. And no other, I mean, she's not going to be able to start another wrestling company. It's just too hard nowadays.
Well, plus she sucks at it. I mean,
she does suck at it.
She is terrible.
Yeah. So this is probably her best bet to stay involved in wrestling. If she breached their contract in some way, shape, or form and can help the Hardys get that gimmick, then she needs to go for it, because that's just going to put her in good favor with fans that she helped them get that gimmick. And most importantly, it'll put her in good favor with Vinnie Mac, and that guy runs wrestling. So
absolutely. So Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather, they're doing their world tour. And yesterday in Toronto, Conor McGregor went apeshit on Floyd Mayweather. Just totally put him on blast, talking about how he can't read and this and that. He's gonna, beat him. He's a bitch and this and that. I gotta tell you, I thought it would take longer than this, but yesterday's press conference, they got me. I'm buying the damn thing. I'm ashamed of myself. I'm not proud of this, but yeah, I'm buying the thing.
$100, man.
Yeah, man, it's official. It's like, well, so I can roll with standard definition, man. I'm cool with that. Like high definition, that's not a big deal to me. I'm cool with standard, so I'll do the $89.95. I'm okay with that, and then I'll have some of the airmen at work with. I'll have them come over and help pay for the damn thing. But, yeah, man, they got me. It's gonna be a ridiculous fight, and I know we've already kind of done a full episode on that fight. But what did you think of the press conference? And most importantly, what did you think of Conor McGregor's suit on day one?
All right, the suit, I love it. Conor McGregor is the only guy who can pull that off, and it was fantastic. Here's what they should have done. Instead of making us pay for the fight and getting to watch these press conferences for free, they should have flipped it. Make us pay for these press conferences and then watch the fight for free, because these press conferences are far more entertaining than that fight ever will be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Floyd Mayweather is going to put his foot in his mouth, because at one point he said he would be willing to fight in MMA regulation gloves, which Conor immediately called him out on, because everybody knows Floyd Mayweather would never do that.
Right.
He said he would step foot into the octagon. Again, McGregor called him out on it. He would never do it. Mayweather is never going to step foot in an MMA ring and fight an MMA fight. He would just get completely slaughtered.
Well, it really depends on if he pays his taxes or not.
Yeah.
Which, it come out, he owes the government $22 million right now. And the fans of Toronto were so awesome. Whenever Floyd got up to speak, they started chanting like an old school ECW chant, "Pay your taxes."
Just clap, so clap. Great.
Oh, that's so fantastic. I love everything about it.
If I were McGregor, if Mayweather ever gets the best of him in a verbal altercation, which he never will, McGregor could easily pull "you need me more than I need you." I could easily pull out of this fight, and you won't be able to pay your taxes and have to go to jail again.
Oh, that's a great idea, yeah.
And McGregor could put it in a much better way than I ever could. Yeah. But I would love to see him drop the line somewhere along those lines, just see him drop that in his face. Because at this point, Mayweather needs McGregor. McGregor does not need Mayweather. Yeah, McGregor's going to make a lot of money from this fight, but he's also going to make a lot of money in any fight he does, and he's 28 years old. Mm-hmm. Floyd Mayweather's 40. There's no one else out there for him to make this kind of money. And $22 million, that's a lot of freaking money for taxes. And the IRS, in the end, will always get theirs.
Ask Wesley Snipes, man. It will happen. Hey, so
Nicolas Cage.
Nicolas Cage, Joe Louis, a lot of guys went down for that stuff, man. Hey, so the early estimates for this pay-per-view are at 7 million buys. That's the over-under now, is 7 million. Can you freaking believe that?
When this fight first came up, we were discussing, potentially would it do 3 million? Would it crack 4 million? I believe that's what Pacquiao Mayweather did.
Right.
If it does 7 million, that's insane. Yeah. I mean, I said personally, this is going to look Mike Tyson numbers in the face and laugh at it, but 7 million buys is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, so a lot of companies don't even do that in a year. I mean,
no,
UFC struggling to get to that in their first quarter at this point.
Yeah, WWE never once did 7 million pay-per-view buys in 1 year. Not even in the Attitude Era when Steve Austin was, pulling monster numbers. UFC isn't even going to come close to that this year. 7 million if it does it. So that's what they're trying to sell to advertisers right now, is that they're going to be $7 million. And I think they are making, what'd they say, $24 million just on advertising dollars for the show alone?
Yep.
I mean, this thing is going to be a monster, man.
Yeah, it's going to be huge, and that's why, even though the fight is a joke, I mean, it's not going to be a good boxing match. I'm going to have to stop calling it a fight because it's not that. It's not going to be a good boxing match. Mayweather will probably just dance around and make McGregor miss, but the reason it makes sense is because everybody involved, the weasel over in Showtime, that piece of shit Dana White, Mayweather and McGregor are all going to walk away very, very rich men afterwards. I mean, they're going to make so much money that it's not even funny.
Yeah, and the federal government's going to make a lot of money. And word going around, or I guess word on the street is, it's been confirmed that Donald Trump is going to try to go to this show. I guess Espinoza from Showtime said that, yeah, it's official. Donald Trump is looking into coming to the show, but it's going to take a lot of accommodations. Do they charge him for 2 seats because he's so fat, or what?
I mean, probably charge him for 2 seats, and why not go to the show? It's not like he has any important job he has to do. I mean, there's nothing going on with his life.
Well, I mean, it is really going to cut into his golf game,
Yeah.
Right now he's in France, which dude, Mike Gaspar had the greatest line on Twitter today. He said, "I hope Donald doesn't screw up in France because I don't think I can live through freedom fries and freedom toast again." That was awesome.
That was a thing that happened. That was. I mean, everybody talks so much trash, and kind of getting away from wrestling and from UFC. Everyone talks so much trash on Obama playing golf like twice a year. Donald Trump has done nothing but play golf, and he's going to go to this. Did Barack Obama ever go to a fight or a Bears game or a Cubs game or a Bulls game? I mean,
I think he went to Nationals games like every now and then. Look, there's nothing wrong with the president going to a show, right? There's nothing wrong with it. It's just there's something wrong when you spend 8 years criticizing a guy for some of his leisure activities, and then you completely quadruple the amount of leisure activities that he ever did. So that's I think that's the issue.
Dream scenario here. McGregor wins the fight. He beats Mayweather. I don't care how. And they put a live microphone in that guy's hand, and he goes to town on Donald Trump because he has the balls to do it right to his face. He
does, but I get the feeling he's a Trump guy. Apparently everyone's saying he's racist, so because he called McGregor a boy, which I didn't even know that was racist. I guess like we're gonna have to start picking and choosing our words more carefully and starting to find out what exactly is a racial slur, because I didn't know that boy was a racial slur.
Yeah, it definitely a racial slur. And here's the reason McGregor is a Trump guy. Trump is going to cut taxes for the rich, and McGregor is the rich. So Trump is better for McGregor than anybody else is at this point.
Yeah, I guess so. We had the progressive liberal on last week. We probably could have had that conversation with him last week. Moving away from politics. So NXT. Last night on NXT, they had Bobby Fish. He debuted. And then, spoiler alert, spoiler, Kyle O'Reilly debuted also during the tapings last night. He also lost to Aleister Black. So, spoiler on that too, my bad. So, what do you think of Red Dragon coming in? And NXT looks like they're starting to replenish their roster. Bobby Fish, Red Dragon. They recently signed Leo Rush, and Adam Cole is going to be in any day now. Probably see him at TakeOver in some capacity. They lost a lot of talent last year and earlier this year with Nakamura leaving and Samoa Joe and Finn Balor and all these guys. But it looks like they're starting to round out the roster pretty nicely.
Yeah, and I'm excited about these guys coming in. The tag team division needs a little bit of help down there. Outside of the Authors of Pain, they don't have what you would consider legitimate contenders in that division. My biggest thing with the guys they're signing is these are all guys in their early to mid-20s, as opposed to the last few, rounds of NXT signings like Balor or Nakamura, Bobby Roode, Joe. Those are all seasoned veterans, guys who are in their mid-30s. and you knew they weren't going to be there very long, not a very long shelf life. The guys now, early to mid-20s, they can really help make NXT something special, and they could potentially be there for a couple of years and still not even reach their prime before they get to the main roster. So, I mean, we talk about it all the time. Triple H is doing fantastic things down there. I don't question anything he does. Really excited with what they got going on down there. I can't wait. Hopefully Adam Cole is there at NXT TakeOver close to SummerSlam weekend, because I've been waiting for him for a while.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think it's inevitable. It's only a matter of time. So I got a few more stories. We won't spend too much time on them because we've got Scott Sudikoff coming on. We got a good 40 minutes with him, and then I really want to get into some segments. So just real quick, Austin Aries, he's gone. He got released last week. Turns out my theory was correct. I talked about it on Twitter that he was kind of an asshole, and that was true this time. It happened in TNA when he was there. It happened in Ring of Honor when he was there. He came into WWE. The people in NXT didn't like him. He went up to the Cruiserweight division. The Cruiserweights didn't like him. The writers didn't like him. And they had basically had enough. And Aries had enough. And now he's gone. So, sayonara, Austin Aries. Good luck in Global Force Wrestling.
Yeah, I was just getting ready to say, I feel like given the situation over there in Global Force, they're going to need a new champion at some point soon. Aries kind of makes sense for that because Jeff Jarrett is a huge fan of him. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that happen within. I believe Aries will have to sit out the standard 3 months and get paid to do nothing, like every release from WWE. So come around September, October, we'll probably see Aries end up back on Global Force and probably be champion there.
Yeah, definitely. Probably X Division champion, something like that. Also, over the weekend, AJ Styles won the United States Heavyweight title in Madison Square Garden at a house show, which has not happened in a long time. I think the tag title switched on a house show years ago. Not counting when Samoa Joe beat Finn Balor in I think Lowell, Massachusetts, I think is what it was.
Yeah.
For the NXT, but a WWE title switching on a house show, I think that's awesome, man, because I've been to house shows before, and whenever it's a title match, it doesn't mean anything because you know that it's not going to change hands, so they really shook things up. I dig it.
Yeah, last year after Joe took the title off Balor at a house show, I actually went to an NXT house show about 2 months after that, so they were still continuing that program. So knowing that the title had just switched hands at a house show, when I got to watch that rematch, you really felt like Balor could win. It happened before. Why can't it happen now? So it made that match feel much more special. And that's why I kind of dig this happening now. It has been 5 years. It was, I think, Primo and Epico had lost the tag titles or gained the tag titles at some point during a house show.
Yeah, dude, when I read that today, I was like, wait, Primo and Epico were the champions at one point?
Yes.
I had no idea.
The tag division used to be that bad that Primo and Epico, the Shining Stars, Los Matadores, were tag champions at one point.
Wow.
So, I like it. And from what the fans have said, just, reading tweets and stories about it, it was very clearly match of the night. AJ Styles and Kevin Owens, why wouldn't it be? So I wish they would record stuff like these for network specials, which maybe makes it less special as a house show. But it's Madison Square Garden. Why not? Dude,
they got enough programming on WWE Network already. Obviously I would love it. Maybe if they had like a condensed version of some sort. But because they're doing pay-per-views every other week, now they got the Mae Young Classic, 205 Live, all these freaking shows. Dude, I can't keep up. I do not want them to have another live show. I'm married.
I wouldn't do it to add as every month kind of thing. Just record certain things at house shows, and maybe at the end of the year release a best of house shows event where it's just 2 or 3 hours, something like that,
or like an unreleased type of thing. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
So in other news, the Young Bucks are pissed off at Josh Barnett, saying that Josh Barnett buries them on commentary. Now, I got some advice for the Young Bucks. If you have a problem with Josh Barnett, please do me a favor and try to fight that man. Just do us all a favor and try to fight that man. And then after the fight, know your place and shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
So I don't think if you have much to add on that, but
Yeah. I don't get. I mean, I kind of understand that Josh Barnett doesn't really commentate to their style very well, but not every commentator can commentate to every style. It's just not possible. So at some point you have to realize, hey, I'm not losing any money because of this guy. So I just need to shut up and do my job. Because
Absolutely.
running your mouth about a former heavyweight champion of mixed martial arts, not a good idea, because
especially when you're 191 pounds.
Soaking wet. I mean, there may be 191 pounds if they were fully clothed and just got pushed into a pool.
Right.
So I mean, not a very smart move on their part, but Josh Barnett is a professional. He's probably not going to murder them, but I kind of hope he does.
Right. Also, Gegard Mousasi, he has left the UFC. He's turned down their offer, and he's signing with Bellator. I honestly did not expect this. I was kind of shocked. I thought that Mousasi was going to be fighting in like a number one contenders match in the UFC soon. I think they had him lined up for Luke Rockhold, which would have been a great fight. But nope, it looks like he's going to Bellator, man. And I'm kind of excited for him because I never thought that the UFC took very good care of him.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. And we're really seeing kind of a mass exodus of talented fighters leave the UFC, in part because of the Reebok sponsorship deal.
Yep.
And in part because Dana White's a piece of shit.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
I mean, I think we're going to see more of this until they get their shit together. And they just appear to be a petty company overall. I mean, look, they asked Showtime to take Ariel Helwani off of the media credential list for the McGregor-Mayweather fight.
Yeah, what the fuck is that all about? It's just it's sheer pettiness is all it is. Because Ariel was going to be working for Showtime. He was going to take over from Mauro Ranallo because Ranallo had to call NXT. And he was just going to be hosting the press conference. And Dana White threw a fit and got him pulled off of it. Even though UFC supposedly is not promoting this show at all.
Yeah.
It's absolutely ridiculous.
It all comes back to when Brock Lesnar came back for UFC 200 last year. Ariel Helwani broke the news 4 hours before Dana White did, and that hurt Dana White's feelings. And ever since then, that night, he had Ariel Helwani removed from UFC 200 and has continuously tried to ban him from fights. I don't get it. Like, your company has had a lot of negative press. Why are you going to just continue to be a douchebag and fight over petty things like this? You're having bad pay-per-view numbers this year. You need all the good press you can. This is like the NFL banning Adam Schefter from covering their sport. Why are you banning your best journalist from covering your sport? That makes no sense.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so I just got a few more quick hits, and then we'll get to the Scott Sudikoff interview, and then we'll come back, and we will do some segments. Our new weekly segment, Alberto Del Rio is an asshole, and who gives a shit, and probably a couple more segments, whatever we kind of come up with. So, just 1 second, I lost my notes. Don't worry, I'll edit this crap out. Oh, so it looks like Enzo Amore, the reason why he has been losing so much and the reason why they broke up the team and how he gotten squashed at the pay-per-view and then really did nothing the next night, turns out everybody hates the motherfucker. He's got a lot of heat. Recently on a tour, Roman Reigns had kicked him off of the tour bus, and he's not even allowed to dress in the locker room with the other wrestlers. Apparently he's like an annoying little shit. Who would have thought?
Who would have thought? Like, Enzo Amore, the guy who has basically like leopard print shaved into his head, would be annoying.
Yeah.
Never seen that coming.
Also another guy who has heat, Big Cass. Apparently, Big Cass is a Trump supporter. And
heat with the wrestlers, but the front office loves him.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, so that was my thing on Twitter today. I said, you know, he's got heat with the boys, but, you know, does Vince have heat with the boys for his political views? Because he donated money to Trump. His wife works for Trump. But now you're going to give Cass shit because he's a Trump supporter? Everybody calm the fuck down.
It's different because Big Cass is not signing those wrestlers' paychecks. Vinnie Mac is. So,
I guess you got a good point there. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so hey, that's gonna do it for the opening of the show. Wow, we did a 40-minute opening. We're gonna go ahead and get into our Scott Sudikoff interview. He is a play-by-play man. I just did a big intro for him. So, Scott Sudikoff, everybody. All right, I'm here with Scott Sudikoff. He's a real professional broadcaster, so we're lucky to have him on here. He's actually been across a lot of different platforms: the American Sports Network, ESPN, Fox, NESn. He calls college football, basketball, baseball, lacrosse, everything you can imagine. If there's a sport out there, this guy's calling it. But most importantly, he is a pro wrestling fan, which is kind of unique, and so I'm really excited to have him on. Scott, how are you?
I'm great. I chuckle first because you say professional. I mean, I'm real. It's just sports broadcasting, so it's really, not really professional anything. Just get to do something pretty fun and get paid for it usually. But yeah, the pro wrestling fan part. It's it's funny because you say, excuse me, you say it's a little unique. I don't know. There's a lot of us that are around. If you look around, especially on Twitter, you're going to find a lot of these sports media types who might be tweeting about SummerSlam or WrestleMania. They're secret, maybe not secretly, but they're fans. So there's a lot of us out there. So you'd be surprised actually at how many tend to pop up. But definitely glad to pop on your show here today. And yeah, it's an exciting time for wrestling. So there's a lot to talk about.
Absolutely. Now, so my first question was going to be, because for the longest time, it seemed like in mainstream sports, pro wrestling was kind of a dirty word. You didn't really hear a lot of the top guys in sports broadcasting really talk about pro wrestling. And if they did, they kind of stood up their noses at it and things like that. So do you get colleagues kind of giving you crap for being a pro wrestling fan?
I don't know. I don't know if crap is the right word. I'm sure, yeah. And I think it's not even so much. I think if anybody, you get a little, nudge. Oh, like, you still watch that? Like, oh, it's fake, right? The whole thing. You get that from a lot of people. It's one of those things, especially in my age now, and where I was a fan when the Attitude Era was happening. That's when I became a huge fan, as a lot of people, obviously, in my age, demographic. You got away from it for a little while. I did for, a 3 or 4 year span. I went to college and I kind of wasn't into it. I always kind of followed it. I always kind of went to a website and looked up what had been going on. And then I just kind of got back into it when I got, home from college, because I said, screw it. Like, what do I care what people think? I'm watching pro wrestling. Big whoop. It makes me happy. I enjoy watching it. I like going to the events. I like talking about it. And then just happens to be I do, sports broadcasting, and so I like real sports and I like fake sports. I don't know what to tell you. Like, it's something I enjoy, and yeah, you're always going to get the amount of crap from other people or the people on Twitter who are going to say, I had somebody on Twitter a couple of days ago, Sunday night during the pay-per-view, saying, I feel bad for you that you're tweeting about pro wrestling, all this stuff. And clearly it's just a troll, the typical troll that has a picture of somebody else, and their profile always says they're married to a gorgeous wife with 3 beautiful kids. It's always the same thing, that's just Twitter for you. So it's, you kind of have to get over it, that part of it, and just, if it makes you happy, you like to watch it, and go for it. If you watch The Bachelor, The Bachelorette, and you enjoy it, then fine. I don't care. Like, just watch what you want to watch. So I kind of go with that kind of mindset, and it's always good to talk to people who enjoy it as well, and that's kind of my thoughts on it. I mean, that's if you enjoy it, enjoy it.
Absolutely, man. So speaking of the pay-per-view on Sunday, Great Balls of Fire, it was kind of a wild pay-per-view, man. What did you think of it?
It was for, first of all, when the whole Great Balls of Fire concept came out, we saw it on Twitter and all that. We all thought it was a joke. We thought it was a rib. We thought that they're making a joke out of this, and they had, they announced Brock Lesnar was going to main event it. So you're kind of like, okay, well, it might have a weird name, but they're going to have something juicy in terms of a main event match. And then again, for it being, in the end, it's still a secondary show. I thought it was a pretty well put together show. the Iron Man tag team match was obviously fun to watch for 30 minutes. It kind of, the Iron Man matches at this point, they've been done enough where they kind of go in one way or another. They either go with, one team gets the quick pin, which Cesaro and Sheamus did, had that early lead, and then the Hardys fought their way back. Sometimes you see the ones that go really long with no falls. So, still it was entertaining, and you got, the kind of another typical thing, that last second pin attempt to try to tie it. But again, they did it well, and I think the Hardys have done what their job was to come in and inject a lot of life into that tag team division, and they put over Sheamus and Cesaro, and those two guys now are better for it. They're better heels, and they're better champions because the Hardys came in and made it that way. And so I think in that regard, they did well with that. The ambulance match was, what you expected. The end of it, to me, I thought at first was overdone, overproduced. That's something that would have happened in 1999, which we all clamor for, apparently. But it's not 1999 anymore. We don't need to do that. Didn't need to be done, basically. I thought it was overdone. But if that's the route they're going to go, then so be it. And people were surprised that then Braun Strowman didn't come busting out all fine and whatnot. And it's like, well, he did just get, crashed into a tractor trailer in an ambulance, so it does make sense for him to be off TV for a couple of days at least.
Right. He was almost murdered.
Still, exactly, and that's where it's weird now because in the late '90s and stuff, we didn't have the social media, so things like that happened. You just you went with it. Now it's like, why isn't Roman Reigns being thrown in jail? Like, what's going on? Like, he literally, the match was over too. So in theory, it's outside the confines of the sanctioned match. Like, if that happened during the match itself, then they could argue, well, they signed an agreement and they're, no liability, yada yada.
Right.
So it's a little strange in that sense. I don't know what they're trying to do over in the end.
Right, because while it was going on, I kind of thought we were watching a double turn. Like, everybody's already booing Roman, everybody's already, cheering Braun, but it seemed like when he crashed him into that semi, that was the double turn, and Braun comes out kind of a hero. Roman took off running scared, like he had just done something horribly wrong, which he did, but he didn't stay and face it. So, did you think it was a double turn, and did they execute it the next night?
I didn't. I didn't. I think I had a tweet that said something along the lines of, "I'll give you all my money if you think this is actually a legitimate double turn." Like, that was their idea of a double turn. I know sometimes they happen. I think maybe even accidentally, but I didn't think. I think because with Roman Reigns, he technically can't turn, if you know what I mean, because he's already being booed by half the crowd and cheered by half the crowd. So if he turns, he'll be booed by half the crowd and cheered by half the crowd. So, I like the idea he just does whatever and kind of just toes that line. To me, he comes off as a heel, especially in the ring, even on Monday night with Samoa Joe and Lesnar with those kind of snide comments. And then you're looking at the screen and like, wait, you lost the match last night. Why should you get a title match? And then he's talking down to Samoa Joe, and Joe is like, "When have you beat me?" And so you're looking at it, and they're placing him in as a babyface, but he's acting like a heel,
right?
Which I guess was Stone Cold Steve Austin, but that's a different argument.
Yeah, he's nowhere near as cool.
No, and it's unfair to even make the comparison and try to say, well, he's not Stone Cold. Well, no one is. No. And no one's The Rock, and no one's ever going to be The Undertaker. And it's just, I think that's one of the problems that I think wrestling fans have now too, is they try to make those comparisons and try to say, well, we need an Austin, we need a Rock, we need an Undertaker. Well, there's just not going to be. But John Cena is pretty damn good for what he's done for 15 years.
Absolutely.
Randy Orton has been pretty damn good for what he's done. So there's just going to be different types of guys, and eventually there might be that standout guy that's going to be, 20 years from now, you go, Well, I really wish we had that Finn Balor guy again, like, because he was, great. So, it's going to happen eventually. I just don't know who.
Yeah, absolutely. So what did you think of the Lesnar-Samoa Joe main event?
At first, I liked what happened before the bell. I enjoyed that. Thought that was great. I thought at first, though, they were just going to do that and have the match not happen. So I was kind of like, ooh, people are not going to like this if they call off this match before it even starts. So thankfully, they started the match properly. And it only went 6.5 minutes once the match started, but I think for what the story they were trying to tell, I think it was done well. That Lesnar was just desperate to hit an F5 and win it. I understand the argument of so many guys kick out of the finishers once, twice, but I think in this instance, you play it off as, Joe thought he had it, he had him. I don't think it's hit with it out of nowhere. And is so, shocked by it. Right. He gets pinned and loses kind of deal. So I think it worked in both ways. It put Joe over as someone who can beat Brock Lesnar, and at this point then beat anybody on the roster. Lesnar keeps the championship, but now he can be beaten, which we always knew, I guess, anyways, but he can be beaten. You kind of put him in sort of in a babyface role in that match, but I still don't think that's what their plan is either with him. And I guess it'll be interesting to see if they go with Joe Lesnar again, because it seems like Strowman Reigns isn't over. With the way that happened, you would think Strowman's going to come back after Reigns. So if I had to guess, I think Joe is going to get another match with Lesnar, and then you'll have Strowman Reigns in a final blow-off at SummerSlam.
Yeah, that's
unless they want to do a fatal four-way, which I don't know. Hopefully they don't do that.
Not a fan. Yeah, not a fan of this. Yeah, it seems like that's what makes sense. The rumors have been swirling around for weeks now that the signed main event already before the pay-per-view had happened was supposed to be Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar, but it seems like Samoa Joe has performed his way into the top echelon of the Monday Night Raw main event scene. That guy is just stealing every single scene that he's in right now.
Yeah, no, and I think you're right. I think potentially they thought of Samoa Joe Lesnar just being a one-off kind of thing, just to try it out. And I think in those segments, Samoa Joe has done what he needed to do to maybe turn some heads. And someone like Vince McMahon who goes, "Wait a minute, well, we got someone here. This guy is legitimately a badass. Brock Lesnar is legitimately a badass. Let's have him have another match. Let's see what happens." And I think a lot of the timeline, everyone is expecting Lesnar Reigns at some point. I think some of it was thrown off when Strowman was hurt for a little while, so they had to delay, Reigns and Strowman. So, it's good that they're gonna roll with it. We'll see if they go with Lesnar with Samoa Joe again. He definitely has earned a spot. Monday's segment in the ring with the three of them was one of the better segments on Raw, better non-wrestling segments on Raw in a long time. And it wasn't that typical, pull-away brawl where two guys and all the whole locker room empties. It seemed like legitimate tension with stories that interconnected all three guys in the ring. And even having Angle in the ring was kind of, because he obviously has his backstory with Lesnar, and then for us fans who have followed outside of WWE, we know that there's Angle and Samoa Joe have some tension there. And then obviously they've shown Reigns and Joe. So that was one of the better things that they've put on TV outside of an actual match in a long time. And I think I'm definitely excited to see what they do with Joe versus Reigns to go for Lesnar. It wouldn't be shocking, obviously, if Strowman shows up and is involved.
I think you can book that right now.
The simple booking is Strowman comes out and costs Reigns that match.
Right.
And no, I think it's that time. It's there's those little pockets of time during the year that are WWE tends to turn it on. It's from Royal Rumble to WrestleMania, and it's from this point to SummerSlam, and then like the rest of the year, you kind of have your ups and downs. But I think we're in that situation right now where they're trying to put out the best product, which I don't doubt that they're not trying to put out the best product all the time, but I think even more of an emphasis on hooking people in right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And, SummerSlam is the number 2 show of the year. And it's really interesting because they have a lot of different ways they can go with it. They have a lot of different mini events that they can put together. So, I'm pretty excited about SummerSlam. Now, you had a chance to watch tonight's NXT, right?
I only was able to get through a little bit of it, so I haven't seen the whole show yet. But I unfortunately always just find my way seeing some spoilers and directions of NXT going forward. I'm not going to say anything, obviously, because I'm not going to spoil anything. But I understand their overall direction. Just in general, though, NXT is a great show to watch. I mean, it's just a quick, fun hour of stuff, and there's so many good, talented guys that just keep kind of filtering in to NXT. So I'm already looking forward to what they'll do in Brooklyn for their takeover show. I have seen what they plan for their main event, and I'm excited to see it already. And I think I think everybody agrees that it's the best, probably been the best overall wrestling product for the last couple of years, top to bottom, in terms of everything, night in and night out. So it's been fun to watch, and it was kind of wondering when it's going to potentially die down, because on one end you have to think, well, they're going to run out of talent at some point, right? But you watch ROH and you watch New Japan and you watch even GFW, whatever the hell they call it now. You watch that. There are guys that are going to be able to pluck here and there to keep filling those roles. So it's going to be kind of exciting to see, who they decide to bring up and who they bring in to replace those people.
Yeah, and if anybody's ever interested in who is going to be the next crop of talent that's going to show up on NXT, just watch Ring of Honor, watch a lot of those shows, and you'll see who's coming up. And on tonight's episode, it's not a spoiler because it already aired, but Bobby Fish actually took on Aleister Black, and that was a pretty good match. So if anybody gets a chance to watch that, be sure to go out of your way and support Bobby Fish. He's a great wrestler. So you had brought up GFW. Now, there's two things I want. I really don't want to go into GFW too much, Global Force Wrestling. But since you're a mainstream sports guy, what did you think of D'Angelo Williams' performance at Slammiversary? And what is next for D'Angelo?
Well, I was able to actually catch that, and it was pretty impressive. Obviously he's a great athlete because he's a very good football player. So obviously he has that athletic ability. And I'll steal this from another show that I listened to. I think it was actually, I'm trying to think who, it may have been Bully Ray that I heard on a different show.
Busted Open.
Talking about, yes, yeah. And I think it was him. I might be crediting this to the wrong person, but I apologize then. But kind of the idea of someone who, respects wrestling, basically. Now that I come to think of it, it was actually Jeff Jarrett on Busted Open.
Oh, okay.
So Jeff Jarrett was talking about it a couple of weeks ago and saying that, a guy that grew up watching wrestling, respected wrestling, and that's the key for someone like that to put on a good performance. That if not someone like LeVar Ball, who came on to Raw with no regard for any of it and acted like a jackass. Because, it's someone who respected it, comes in, does the work, and puts on a pretty good performance. And obviously he's already said he's retired from the ring now and wants to go back to football. And I actually just saw, a note, a tweet that says he's a free agent, but he doesn't want to sign with the Cowboys. And so,
yeah, that was great.
He'll. So it's funny for a guy who's a free agent saying he's not going to sign with a certain team. All right, but he says he's done with wrestling, but doesn't mean that for sure. And everybody changes in their mind. I know that. So I thought it was pretty impressive, and considering what that match was, it was good. And you see, people mock the fact that it was D'Angelo Williams, not a bigger name, but you're not going to get you're not going to get as big of a name to go do TNA, GFW as you will on WWE, just the way it is. And but definitely acquitted himself very well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think D'Angelo Williams is a big name. I mean, I had him on my fantasy team like 3 years in a row at one point.
I did too. Oh yeah, you did. I mean, he was a good fantasy player for sure. Yeah, I mean, big name. Football. Football fans are going to know who he is.
Right.
But I mean,
he's not Gronkowski, but
exactly. That's exactly right. Gronkowski being at WrestleMania moves the needle a little bit more than D'Angelo Williams. If D'Angelo Williams did the Rob Gronkowski stuff at WrestleMania, people would be like, "Oh, okay." And that's not a knock on D'Angelo Williams. It's just just certain guys who have just a higher profile, and Gronkowski has it more because he's just a crazy guy who just happens to be best friends with Mojo Rawley. So it just kind of works out.
Yeah, absolutely. So one more GFW story. I take it that you're tracking this Alberto El Patron page situation, and domestic violence is a kind of plagued major sports at different times, and we don't know all the facts on this situation. But what are your thoughts as of right now, and what do you think GFW should do to handle the situation?
Well, I will say I've only kind of read stuff. I know there's an audio tape. I really don't have any interest in listening to whatever happened. I just kind of go off what I've read. I think what, and I tweeted this earlier today, what is pretty obvious is that there's been something going on with Alberto, whatever you want to call him. I still call him Del Rio. It's easier to say. Mm-hmm. Alberto Del Rio. There's been something amiss with him for a little while. I think it seems pretty clear to me. I'm obviously not a doctor. I don't fully know his life, so maybe he has issues that are beyond my, thought that, hey, everybody has their problems. But, from all those videos and all the trash talking about WWE, and I get it. I understand people get bitter with places that they've worked, and there's probably issues, and I don't doubt that. But a lot of guys just go on and just live their life and work for another company, and they don't need to talk crap over and over again. And it was even before this whole story came out, he made comments, and maybe even rightfully so. He made comments about the Page video reference and that rap battle, and they're going to be in San Antonio, come to my restaurant or whatever, and come fight me. Like those are things that are kind of red flags that go with everything that has been going on with him. And then obviously what happens at an airport with Page, and it just doesn't look good. And I think one of the saddest parts about it is that Paige, who is what now, she's 23, 24,
something
tops.
Like that.
I mean, just a couple of years ago, you're thinking she's going to be a huge star in this company in WWE for a while. I was a big fan. I enjoyed always watching her, and just kind of all of a sudden, she's still under contract, but I think they're just going to let that contract run out and just say, "See ya." Like, sorry, we can't condone this. Like, if you go and you separate yourself and you clean yourself up or whatever, and you want to come back, fine. But obviously, the issue is they're making that movie or made that movie about her. So there's that pulling them. But in terms of Del Rio himself and what suspending him indefinitely, I mean, that is what companies do now. Wrestling companies, it's what the NFL should do. It's what most places do when things like this come up, that you just have to take that step. And obviously you have to credit them because he's the world champion that I think they've taped 4 or 5 episodes already with him involved. Mm. So they're definitely stuck in a bad situation where, okay, we suspended this guy, but now do we air the pieces that we have for him on TV? And personally, I would say that they're probably going to have to air those parts on TV because that will, it's their main, their main story, basically.
Yeah, he was the main focal point of all those tapings. Yeah,
and there might be people who say, well, you suspended him indefinitely. Why is he on TV? Well, we'll understand the fact of, well, they taped all this stuff before he was suspended indefinitely.
Right.
So if they go ahead and they just air all that, and then who knows, obviously in 5 weeks, they may have this whole situation resolved so they can continue on with what they were doing. If not, in 5 weeks, they find a way to get out of it. They just, have whoever the authority figure is now. Is it Bruce Pritchard? Is he the one who usually in charge comes out and says, we've stripped Alberto Del Rio of the championship and we're going to do this? And just, this is what they're going to have to do. And I think people at least respect the fact that the company did that, because it's not as if he was just a guy on the roster, it would have been a much easier decision. I know that sounds bad, but they're putting out a television product, and he's the top guy in essence. So it's tough to make just that decision, especially when there hasn't been any charges and all of that, and things of that nature. So you kind of have to tread lightly with that. But it's just a bad situation overall. It's kind of sad because of the Page situation, and because a few years ago, and how many years ago, when Del Rio was coming up, or in WWE, you thought this guy was going to be a huge star, and he was for a good amount of time. And hopefully, to me, it seems like they just have to separate. The Page and Alberto just have to go their separate ways, because clearly one's affecting the other. They're just not a good fit.
Yeah,
it's easy for me to say.
Right, yeah. I mean, that's their business, but, they seem to be in the headlines a lot. But, not to... Yeah. We don't want to keep everybody down on a sour note. So I got a few more questions for you.
Sure.
Is Mayweather versus McGregor the biggest pro wrestling match of all time?
It could be, if they're going that way. If they're really... I mean, there's all the theories out there that this is all just a work. Which would you blame them?
No, absolutely.
Because they just meet one day, and they might not actually like each other. I'll buy that, but they might have met one day and just said hey, we can make $200 million if we just shake hands and say we're having a fight, and then just go out there and we'll box. So we'll make sure we hit each other a few times, but hey, we won't kill each other. And then just walk away with a ton of money. And everybody's biting. I mean, it's hard not to, I guess. Because I mean, I put the odds on it being a work, 20%. Most likely they're legitimately fighting each other, but it wouldn't be shocking if they had just, decided to put this together. It would. I don't know what they would do. They want to do that. They can figure out a way to have a second match too, a second fight, all these ways. But I think we know for sure that the fight itself won't be as good as the build up. But that's everybody's saying that, and I'm sure Vince McMahon is watching very closely.
I hope he is.
I hope he is, and again, I'm gonna go back to referencing Busted Open on Sirius XM. By the way, they don't pay me. I'm just I'm just a fan of them. I'm just a fan of them.
Shout out Dave LaGreca and Larry Dallas. Shout out, buddies.
Yep, and Bully Ray on there a lot. He had this, I think he had this thought too about that Vince is probably watching this, and he might do anything he can to have the rematch be at WrestleMania 34. That he might go to McGregor and Mayweather and say, "Hey, why don't you come have a second match, quote unquote, now at WrestleMania? How much more money you want to make? Come do this." So it's definitely intriguing, and it's a week after SummerSlam, so SummerSlam should be able to do their thing, and then we'll see what happens with that fight. But it might be the biggest wrestling match of all time. Just it'll be boxing.
Yeah, absolutely. I get the feeling it's going to be a legit, but with this build up and everything that's surrounding it, if I'm Triple H, or if I'm the guy running, Matt Bloom, I think runs the NXT Performance Center. If I'm those guys, I'm having all those trainees sit down and watch these press conferences that they're doing, because I watched the one earlier today, and Conor McGregor got my money. He got my $100. I'm already asking my wife if I can buy the damn thing. And I had no interest before, but it's happening now. I'm going to get the stupid thing. I already know that Mayweather's going to win. I get it, but I want to see it now, because they pro wrestling to me. They did the Dusty Road, so they got me. They talked me into the building. So kudos to them, I guess, because they suckered me.
Yeah, no, I mean that's why you kind of just think of this being a work, because they know what they're doing. They're working us. Even if they are really going to fight, they're still working us, because they're going to make people pay a ridiculous amount of money to watch it on pay-per-view or to watch it their lives, and it's going to. I mean, and I'm not an expert in either boxing or MMA, so I'm just. But I pretty much can know that it's just going to be Mayweather dancing around to not get punched in the face, and then maybe he lands one big punch on McGregor and it's over.
Right.
But
I mean,
who knows? It can end up being the best thing of all time for all we know.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, anything can happen in a real fight. All right, I got a couple more. We'll just fire them off real quick, and then I'll let you get back to your night. I really appreciate you doing this with me, man. This has been a lot of fun.
No problem. No, it's there's everybody. We're all trying to launch our brands and our podcasts and our shows, and it's always fun to see new shows pop up, and hopefully. You guys will be doing this for many episodes and years down the line.
Hopefully, man. Hopefully. So, who is your favorite crossover athlete that came over into mainstream sports? I'm not talking like Wahoo McDaniel, guys like that who were like a longevity careers of pro wrestling. I'm talking like who's like a really big star from sports that came over into pro wrestling that was your favorite.
So who did sports? So was a sports an athlete?
A big time athlete that came into pro wrestling and did a match or
it just and for a one off or
could be a one off or they came back a few times, yeah, like a Lawrence Taylor or a Karl Malone, Dennis Rodman, things like that. That's a good question. Wow, I was not prepared for. My bad. I probably could have given you that
intellectual. I mean, I guess again being an Attitude Era baby, I guess I'll call it. Growing up, being 13 years old in 1999 and 12, that age around that time, it was definitely fun to watch the Rodman Malone stuff because I was a gigantic NBA fan in the 90s. I'm a Celtics fan, but the Celtics in the 90s weren't very good, but I still loved the NBA. I loved watching, and so I watched the Jazz and Bulls NBA finals of that season, and then also their wrestling on WCW, and I thought it was probably the coolest thing. It's hard to say. I'm trying to think of other guys. I mean, but I guess that would be my favorite, segment, favorite storyline using the crossover stars. I think they definitely, that summer was a pretty hot time for both WCW and WWF. So then they capped it off with Jay Leno, which not as good, but he doesn't really qualify, I guess, technically for the question. But the Rodman involvement, getting Malone was big, and I know WCW had a long line of doing that too. I know they had Kevin Green jumped in there before for a while. So. Yeah, that'll be my answer. Mike Tyson is a close second. I only say a close. Mike Tyson probably would have been my number one, but I will admit that I was just getting into it right around that time where he showed up at the Royal Rumble, and then obviously was at WrestleMania, which was in Boston. I didn't go to. I was 12 years old.
That would have been awesome.
I had no earthly clue that WrestleMania was in Boston, because again, I had just started really to start watching on Mondays and get into it. So Tyson would have been number one probably, but since I wasn't technically watching at the time, I don't want to claim it as my number one.
Well, people talk a lot of crap about that WCW Rodman Malone was it Karl Malone and DDP versus Hogan and Rodman thing. In hindsight, they kind of make fun of it. But when I was a kid, I loved it, and I was a Bulls fan. Even though I'm from California, I was a front runner, and Rodman was on the Bulls, so I was all over that. I loved that match, and I loved that whole storyline. And they were on the Tonight Show and this and that. So hey, that's a great answer. I really like that. All right, so one last question, and then we'll let you get back to your life, man. What's your favorite match of all time?
I thought that might be the question. Oh man, that is just.
Can I tell you mine while you're thinking of yours?
Do most people have one match? I feel like it's so tough to just say one match. I guess yeah, but that is. I guess the way to look at the question, if I had to watch only one match the rest of my life, what match would it be? It's probably the way to. You can edit this, right? You can cut out a lot of the dead space.
Oh, I absolutely can. Yeah. If Audacity wants to work for me, we'll know tomorrow.
Let's see. Let me think about this for a second. Favorite match of all time. Wow. I think I feel like the easy answer is Shawn Taker WrestleMania 25.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I feel like it's too easy of the answer, which is why I'm trying to think of something else, because I feel like that's probably the answer for a lot of people, which is fine, obviously, because it was that good of a match. Just because it really did. I remember watching it live and legitimately being like, I'm a pretty calm wrestling fan, if that makes sense. Like, I sit there and I watch it and I get it and I know what's going on. And, like, I'm not, but that one had me like forgetting. The whole beauty sometimes is forgetting what you're watching, in a sense. You think you're watching pure sport all of a sudden, and that's kind of what that match did. You kind of just got sucked into it. So I think that definitely stands out for me and for a lot of people. I'm trying to give you a 1B though, because I want to be a little different. But man, I mean, nothing really just jumps out. I guess Punk Cena and Money in the Bank.
That was awesome.
I guess also jumps out. More so because of what was surrounding it, and obviously the match itself was great too. I mean, it wasn't a bad. It was a very good match. I think what surrounded it more gave it that bigger feel. That match just happened without everything else. It would have been good, but not great. Yeah, those would be my two answers. That's my cop out there. My two answers.
That's not a cop out, man. Those are two great matches. Those are two of my favorites too. So that's not a cop out at all, man. Those are awesome matches. And I think for the time, Cena and Punk kind of transcended the business and turned Punk into a huge superstar, to where now he's getting his ass whooped in UFC. But he was that catapulted him from kind of a mid-card status to a legendary status. So that whole thing was amazing. And then of course, Shawn and Taker 25, that kind of, I forgot that I was an adult watching a kid's show at that point.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what I mean. Like
I was jumping out of my seat and the whole thing, man.
Yeah. So it's that definitely was definitely a special match. And I mean, the thing, there's been so many other just very good matches that you could make a pretty good list of. And I'm trying to think of matches I've even seen in person that would qualify as because that's like a different category, because when you're there. But I don't think I've even been to a match live that's been as good as either of those two. So I mean, there's a lot of. I remember some 1999 Monday Night Raws, but those are some crazy old memories of Undertaker being chokeslammed through the ring by the Big Show and the higher power and all that. I was lucky growing up that we had a lot of good shows that came to the Boston area that I got to attend. So a lot of moments I always call up on the network and go, "Hey, I was there." That's pretty cool. So. Yeah,
that's awesome, man. So if anybody's listening, go ahead and kick on the network and watch those two matches, and you'll be thankful you did. Hey, Scott. Hey, I really appreciate you coming on the show, man. Taking the time with me, getting through my technical difficulties. What's your Twitter account, and where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Sudikoff, and if you don't know how to spell it, it's Sudikoff, 2 F's, at Sudikoff on Twitter. And yeah, I'm pretty active on there when it comes to Mondays, Tuesdays, and Sundays, and all the wrestling days. And so definitely hit me up on there, and we will chat more wrestling.
Awesome, man. Hey, thanks a lot.
All right, thanks for having me.
Yeah, bye. All right, big thanks to Scott Sudikoff. He's actually a big deal, man, a professional broadcaster. Can you believe it? Right here on our little wrestling show. He's a huge wrestling fan. He really knows his shit. So everybody go support Scott Sudikoff. If you see him on your television, tweet him and let him know that you heard him here first. So Joe, let's go ahead and get into some segments. Our first segment, which, like we said before, is probably going to be a weekly running segment, is Alberto Del Rio is an asshole. Apparently, on Sunday, Alberto and Paige got into a domestic dispute of some sort at the airport. She threw a drink on him. He told her that he wished her uncle was going to die or something like that. It seems as though these guys are in the headlines every single week.
Yeah, he also yelled out to check her bag because she has all the cocaine and it's all hers.
Oh, wow. So not only is he an asshole, he's a snitch.
Yeah, just the worst kind of asshole.
Right.
Because, I mean, that's a felony, transporting drugs in an airport.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's a huge one.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, so, we don't know exactly what happened. Not all the facts are out. It doesn't appear like he beat her or anything like that. They were just kind of arguing. He might have grabbed her or something like that, but it doesn't appear there was any beatings going on. Although her brothers have come out and said that he has done that to her in the past. But you never know what you can believe on the internet these days, man.
Yeah, and there's more and more stories coming out. Looking back, almost a year ago, the incident where Paige got arrested in, I think, Las Vegas. It's been rumored that the issue was something to do with Del Rio that night. There may have been some abuse or other things there. And then going back to the time where Del Rio got stabbed, and there was no police report, and his story had changed on it 3 times. The rumor is, I've seen it from a couple people on Twitter that it was possibly Paige's brother who had stabbed him in defense of Paige when an altercation was happening. So
yeah, well,
this is not going to be the last time we hear of this.
No. I think those two need to get as far away from each other as they possibly can. It doesn't seem to be working out. So, but hey, Alberto Del Rio, you're an asshole. All right,
you're a piece of shit.
Next segment is Dana White is a liar. We happen to have one of these just about every week. Well, he said that he doesn't think that Ronda Rousey or Miesha Tate is ever going to fight again. Well, it turns out there's rumors swirling that he's trying to book Ronda Rousey and Miesha Tate to fight later this year in a third fight. It came out in the Observer today. But Dana White, just a week ago, is saying absolutely unequivocally Ronda Rousey's not coming back.
I mean, she doesn't need to.
No. Well, she might not have as much money as people think that she does.
I mean, I'm saying she doesn't need to because she has not looked good in her last 2 fights at all.
Oh, no.
And she needs to just do modeling and acting, or maybe make the jump to pro wrestling, because
it's funny. It's funny you bring that up. So just before we started recording, it turns out Ronda Rousey's at the Mae Young Classic tonight.
Ooh, there you go.
She took some pictures with Triple H, and she's in the front row. Shayna Baszler, who is one of her training partners, actually turned to pro wrestling and is in the tournament. So she's there to cheer her on. But, she's there in the front row, and she's there with Triple H. So, I think that would be a good fit if she does decide to go that way. But the fact that Dana White is coming out pleading with everybody to believe him this time, that they're not going to fight, and then all the while he's trying to book her for another fight. He's a fucking liar.
I think we have learned that when Dana White says something, just know that the opposite is the truth.
Absolutely. Hey, Joe, do you have a who gives a shit?
My who gives a shit this week is the fucking Kurt Angle storyline coming up. We're going to find out next week who it is that Kurt Angle has been texting and talking to on the phone. He said that they have nothing to be ashamed of and that he loves them. That's all going to be revealed next week. And I've got a big fat of who gives a shit. I hate these storylines in wrestling. I don't know who likes these storylines, and I don't expect it to be anything of real interest. Who gives a shit?
And my who gives a shit of the week is there seems to be a feud brewing, and a big match has been signed for SummerSlam. It's Big Cass versus The Big Show. 2 bigs going at it in a big match on a big pay-per-view. Well, guess what? Who gives a shit? I am not interested in that match, not whatsoever. Although now that Cass is a Trump supporter, I wouldn't mind seeing him get shot on by Big Show. But Big Cass versus Big Show, who gives a shit?
I'm sure that match will be very athletic and have plenty of good spots and not just a bunch of, shoulder blocks at all.
Shoulder blocks, chops, shoulder block, leg drop, chop, boot. That's it.
There you go.
All right. Hey, Joe, what should everybody watch for this weekend?
Man, I've got nothing to watch this weekend, so I'm completely open to suggestions. You were talking to me about All Pro Wrestling coming up.
Well, don't try to steal mine. Don't try to steal mine, motherfucker.
I've got nothing, man. This is my first weekend where I don't have a big event coming up. There's no Ring of Honor.
Tell everybody to watch something old.
What I'm going to be watching is I've got a bunch of Kevin Owens stuff, Kevin Steen from back in Ring of Honor. XWT is your friend there. I downloaded a bunch of stuff off of that. So I'm just going to sit back, and I believe I've got Kevin Steen versus AJ Styles that is coming up. I think Kevin Steen versus Tommy and Aleister Black. So there you go. Watch Kevin Steen at Ring of Honor.
Absolutely. And my what to watch this weekend is All Pro Wrestling. They had a show last Friday night called Bay Area Bash. I was in attendance, and our new friend Vinny Massaro, who's going to be coming on the show next week. So check out Vinny on Twitter at Snoring Elbow. He's also a member of the Lucha Underground roster. But he was in the opening match, and he pulled off some really awesome moves. Cody Rhodes took on Willie Mack. Jeff Cobb took on Luster the Legend of Global Force Wrestling fame. And Pentagon Jr. was there. Super Crazy from ECW was there. The dude can still do a moonsault. He's 117 years old. He looks like shit, but damn is he still pretty good, man. Got a good drop kick, good moonsault, and the fans still love him. You know what he also did in that match? Spoiler alert. He did Tajiri's tarantula thing over the ropes.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, they used to feud back in the day in ECW. They actually had some amazing matches, so it's kind of cool to see him pull off that move. So go to allprowrestling.com and just check out their YouTube page, and then also get the Fight app, and you can watch some of their stuff on that. That's a really cool app. But hey, Joe, we had a successful show, man. We got Scott Sudikoff on. Follow him at Sudikoff. You can follow us on at the Pod Express. Joe, what's your Twitter account?
At Joe Gilbert 1992.
And I'm at Get Up Mike. Hit us up on Twitter. Follow our YouTube page. Check us out on SoundCloud, iTunes, all that shit. And coming soon, I think we have a deal in principle. We just got to send them the designs. Whatamaneuver.net, the t-shirt company. They have accepted our offer and said that, yeah, we'll sell your t-shirts. So coming soon, we should have some t-shirts going on. I think you'll see some XWT is your friend. Got some GIF-related shirts and, of course, a Podcast Express shirt with our logo. So more to come. Hopefully we'll have some news on that next week, along with Vinny Massaro. So check us out, guys. Thanks a lot.